Welcome back to What Am I Modeling? Today, my guest says, don't let your fall define you. This is an incredibly powerful story, and I encourage you to listen to it all the way to the end. Today, I am talking to a flying Wallenda, Lijana Wallenda, who has spent her entire life on a high wire until she fell. She was put into a medically induced coma. She broke every single bone in her face, and yet she is still on that high wire. She is inspiring. She has so many lessons to share about the little things that rule our life surrounding fear. If we live our lives in fear, we never move forward. And she is an amazing example of how we can push through these moments of fear and become something great. She has moved on her mission to spread this inspirational story everywhere across the world as a professional speaker with her project, the High Wire Project, to inspire others to face their fear, move forward, and live with gratitude. Please check her out. Please give a warm welcome for the beautiful, the inspiring, the gracious Lijana Wallenda. Hi, Lijana. How are you?
Hi, I'm good. How are you doing?
I was just saying to you that of all the guests I could bring on to this show, I think you are the definition of like why I get out there and talk about my mission so much. And I am so excited to share your story today. And I imagine many people have heard of you, but I want to say you are a seventh generation flying Wallenda, right?
Correct. Yes.
Now, anyone who doesn't know who the flying Wallendas are, they walk on high wires and way up in the air and stand on top of each other. They're a family that have literally been defying gravity and death for 200 years, right?
Right.
So, what I found so fascinating when I was reading your story was most kids at 6 years old are learning how to ride a bicycle. Maybe,
Yeah.
you know, or like
Yeah.
just kind of venturing into the yard. And you were learning how to walk on a tightrope on a wire at
Yeah.
6 years old, right?
Yep.
And is somebody that treats, anxiety and stress and dealing with people that are paralyzed by fear that may or may not actually be, quote, real. Maybe it's something that's happened on the back end or something that they're worrying about in the future. You grew up where there was a realistic fear. Like it's a fear of death doing this, but you were so young, this danger was real. What was it like to be such a young child and start doing that? Did you even recognize that fear at that time?
Oh no, not when I was very young. Because it was play. It was just
Yeah.
venturing in the backyard because my parents always had a low wire, maybe 2 or 3 feet off the ground,
Hmm.
in the backyard. So my brother and I would go back there and just pretend we were our parents performing. We would just play around. So the way we learned it was play. It was for fun. It was just kind of, oh, I want to be like mom and dad. And you're low to the ground, so it's not so scary. But and I wasn't allowed to go up high where there were real risks when I was that little. My parents, were
Yeah.
very much like, nope, you stay down low. But when I was 13 years old, I went to my parents and said, hey, I want to start performing in the act with you.
Hmm.
And they said, okay, well, you need to go out and practice. So I'd go out every day on that low wire and practice. And once they saw I meant it, I was serious. They came out and started training me seriously. And so I debuted as a professional high wire walker at the age of 13, 30 feet in the air. So that's high. And I remember that was scary at first. Like when you're up there looking down, and you're taking your first steps out in the wire, it's very scary. My dad was underneath, like spotting, making sure I was okay and all, but there was that fear. But my dad would say, no, you're fine. This is the same thing down low as it is up here, up high. It's just, it seems scarier, but it's the same thing. And so, I did it. And after time up there, that fear kind of goes away and you get very comfortable, almost to a dangerous point where you have to be like, wait, I am up high. I got to pay attention.
Well, and you guys didn't always have nets. I mean, that was kind of your thing, right? I was reading back in the history, which I believe, did that start with Carl in like,
That's 4 generations. My he's the one who started the high wire walking in the family.
okay,
Correct.
within like early 1900s, right? And there was, and I mean, and he, by the way, anyone who doesn't know, you've lost many family members to this Ah,
I have before, kind of before my lifetime. My great grandfather did fall to his death in San Juan, Puerto Rico. That was I was a year old, so that was the last family member that we had lost. But back in 1962, a pyramid fell, and my grandmother's husband, who would have been my step grandfather, fell to his death, and a cousin. So yeah, there has been lots of tragedy in our family.
well, yeah, and yet you just guys just keep getting back up there. Like, that's such a trait of resilience, it's unbelievable. It blows me away. So, I know we're gonna get even into the more to the story, but as you're doing this, you're tight walking as an adult, you start taking more risks. This is a family affair, right? You're doing
Hmm.
it with your brother. I think there was is there cousins or an aunt or something? There's a lot of you in this.
Yeah. Well, it was my mom, my dad, and my brother growing up, the
Okay,
four of us performing, and then it branched out to more people later on. Yeah.
it's unbelievable.
Yeah.
So I guess the question is taking me to when this all fell for you,
Hmm.
because was that 2017? I wanna say.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yes.
So
Yes.
you're up doing this, so I wanna hear about this pyramid thing that supposedly is fantastic, but terrifying. From my understanding, and I want you to tell the story, I want you to tell about what happened on that day, because this completely changed your life. And for those of you listening that live in fear, that have anxiety, that deal with adrenal fatigue, that worry, I want you to really listen to this story because it brings tears to my eye, just
Oh.
even thinking about what you've gone through, but even more what you've overcome by going through this.
Mm.
And I want to just give you a moment to talk about this day
Yeah.
and what happened to you.
Yeah. So yes, it was 2017. My brother and his high wire troop were getting ready to do an 8-person pyramid on the high wire at 4 levels. We were going to break our own world record. Yes, we hold the world record. We were going to do it at a higher height, the 4-level 8-person pyramid. So we were training. We had trained for a while, and we had done it successfully, many times. And this particular training, we were in the tent where the show was to open, so we were up full height. When we start training, we always start down low.
Yeah.
We had done all that, so we're up full height, and I was on the second level. So the men in the first level had built up, and I was standing on a bar between the first two guys' shoulders, and the pyramid was built, and they were walking it out. And I remember it feeling really good, and I remember saying out loud, "Guys, this feels great."
Mhm.
And then the next thing I know, I felt something I'd never felt in my decades of wire walking. I felt sort of a jolt. Like we to this day don't exactly know what happened, but I felt this push and this kind of pull. And I was real calm in those moments, in those kind of scary moments. I think my life had led me to be very calm. And, it's all about mind over matter. So I was like, okay, I just have to be calm. I have to be solid because I had a bar between my shoulders and a man behind me, and it was carrying two people on top. So I didn't want to move to knock them off. So I remember trying to stay as solid as I could and just using that bar that we carry in our hands to balance me. So I would keep steady for the people on top of me. So I remember the balancing pole going up and down and up, and it went completely vertical, which had never happened. And then it pulled me off. And again, still calm. I was like, okay, what do I do now? It all slows down. It's all like slow motion in those moments. It's like our brain works so fast. So I remember thinking, okay, my parents had always trained my brother and I to turn and grab the wire if anything was to happen, so we wouldn't fall and hit the ground. So much so that even on that low wire in the backyard, we weren't allowed to like jump off and play and run off. If we'd step off, we'd have to turn and grab the wire, and
Mm.
then they'd let us go. But they wanted it so second nature that we would just do that. So it was the first thing I thought, and I turned and I saw the wire below me, but it was out of my reach because I was on the second level. So I fell away from the wire. So I saw it below me, and it seemed to slowly rise above me. And I was like, okay, what do I do now? And I thought about my little boy. He was 5 at the time. And I don't know why this is how my brain worked, but I thought about how I wanted my right side, my stronger side, to be able to pick him up and carry him. So I remember thinking to twist to the left. And I must have, because I broke many of the bones, mostly on the left side of my body. But and the next thing I remember is seeing this big round red mat that was inside the circus ring, and it was just getting closer and closer and closer to my face. And then I smacked into the ground. I remember the wind was knocked out of me, and I realized that's what happened. So I kind of laid there for a second, till the wind came back. And then I was trying to get up because I was just worried about everyone else. I never lost consciousness. I thought I was fine. So I was trying to get up. And my brother, who was in the pyramid, he was on the first level. He was able to grab the wire. So he was okay. He safely made his way down almost instantly. We don't know how he got down so fast. And he was at my side right away. And he kept saying, don't get up. And I was like, why? I'm fine. And there's even video footage of me kicking like laying on my back, kicking my legs because I was trying to show my family members that were there, look, I'm not paralyzed. Cause I had a great uncle that
Yeah.
was paralyzed from the waist down back in 1962.
Yeah.
So, I thought about that and I was trying to get up. My brother kept saying, no, stay there. And what I didn't realize is that he said you couldn't recognize me at all within a minute of the accident because my face was so swollen. Um, because I had broken every single bone on my face. I had no idea at the time. I thought I was okay, you know?
It's amazing how that fear response, that cortisol response takes over and you feel okay
Yeah,
and you're communicating thinking you're okay.
yeah.
And so what was going through your head right that just like, what is everyone else doing? I'm fine. Leave me alone. Like how,
I, I,
when was it that you realized you weren't okay? I guess is my question.
I don't even know. I just remember being so worried about everyone else that fell because five of the eight of us fell to the ground. Three of us were badly injured. The other two are actually miraculously okay. Um, and I was just thinking about them. I was worried about them. And then eventually, the pain did start to set in and I laid there. And I started thinking about my brother's kids, my nephews and niece, and my son. In my head, I was like, they are never walking the wire. That came to my mind. Um, and I don't think I just knew it was painful. I didn't quite know what my injuries were at all. I remember being in the ambulance and them racing to the hospital. And the next thing I know, a doctor who was a personal friend of ours had heard and came over and he was there leaning over me saying, you're going to be okay. And then it all goes blurry because they put me into a medically induced coma.
And you were put in a medically induced coma. Why? Because I was reading you had like you ended up getting like 72 screws in your face
Yeah,
replaced. Like
yes,
you had fractured every single bone
every
in your face. I mean, you
every
had to have
every
been
single one.
unrecognizable.
Yeah, everything from like here and down was broken. And so the last 3 days are very very blurry. I don't remember much. I remember little bits here and there, but I had several surgeries because I broke my left calcaneus, which is a bone in your heel. It was
Mhm.
tensing out the skin. I broke my left humerus clear through, is snapped kind of in half, and there's a rod and screws in there. So I had those surgeries. But I didn't remember that. And the next vivid memory I have is waking up in the middle of the night in the trauma unit. And I saw my mom sitting there and a friend. And I remember I was trying to breathe and I didn't think I was breathing. And I'm trying to draw air in. And this is the moment I was scared that I was
Yeah.
like that fear. I remember looking at my mom and going, Mom, I can't breathe. But I couldn't hear my voice. And I did not understand what was going on. That was the moment I was like, okay, I'm dying because I couldn't get anyone's attention. I just lay there. I just started praying. Um, but I was breathing. I was breathing through a trach tube in my neck. And it
Yeah.
just doesn't feel the same when you're breathing through there. So it took me a while to understand that. But yeah, I woke up and I had a trach tube. I had a feeding tube. My jaw was wired shut. It was intense. I couldn't speak because when you have a hole in your neck, you can't, the sound doesn't come out. So they gave me a whiteboard. I have to write out every sentence on a whiteboard. That is when I realized all the injuries I had. I think I honestly, not even until I got home from the trauma unit, like I didn't even know about this surgery. I didn't even know that I had anything in there. I remember getting home to my parents' house and be like, oh, there's a bunch of staples here. What's that? Like, because there was so much going on that I didn't quite clock all of the things
And
that was going
your
on.
identity, I mean, up until that point, I mean, you were a high wire walker. That's what
Correct.
you were. You've been that from the
Correct.
time you were born in a famous
Yes.
family that has done this your entire life. There's an expectation that that's what you're going to do. That's who you are.
Yeah.
So as you're starting to realize, what had happened, you get home, whatever, you come out of that fog
Yeah.
and your identity, I imagine, is shattered because
Yeah.
I imagine nobody said you're going to do this again. You're told you're out. What were the conversations that you started having with yourself
Yeah.
internally
Yeah.
when you were in that moment of just identity crisis? Would you share that?
Sure, sure. Yeah, it was interesting because I never considered that I wouldn't walk the wire again. It just wasn't I don't know why, it just never came in my mind. Now, the doctors weren't sure how well I'd walk on the ground after the accident,
Yeah.
they weren't sure about any of that, but I never considered that I wouldn't walk the wire. But, then you look in the mirror and, like, I mean, my face was so big, swollen with it was really tough. My eyeball was completely red, bloodshot. Um, I had knocked teeth out, sheared a bunch of teeth in half. Like, I wasn't looking cute, man. So looking in the mirror was really hard. Um, and yeah, all of that goes along with performing, right? Your appearance, your ability. We didn't know what my ability would be. Um, and you do start to lose kind of your value in your own mind. Like, what value do I have to this world if I'm not going to be a performer? What am I going to do? But that's when I dug deep and I knew, that that's not where my value comes from. It's not because of my ability. It's because of who I am as a human being and as a person. And I was put on this world in this world for a reason. And if I'm not walking the wire, there's still reason and purpose for me. So, it took a lot of like internal conversations with myself, digging
Yeah.
deep.
Yeah, I look at just like outside of performing world, right? And we're looking just at women, like women,
Yeah.
everyday women that I talk to, they look in the mirror, they put themselves down, they
Yeah.
don't feel that they're good enough. They feel like everyone
Yeah.
else is ahead of them, that they're having to
Mhm.
live up with standards. And, we come to these moments in our life, I think, whatever that story may be for you, your appearance was changed. And I'm sure those little things you worried about before, like the zit on your nose or whatever,
Yeah.
really
Yeah.
was irrelevant in that moment,
Yeah.
but not all of us get to that point where we have such a tragedy, but what an
Yes.
opportunity to I guess I know I talk about this a lot on the show, but to view the world through a different lens because I would imagine you came to a choice where it was like, "All right, I have a choice. I can change the way that I move forward in my life, the way that I look at life, or I can give into this new identity of not being what I think I am, and I can go by what everyone else tells me what to do, and I can just abandon who I am and become somebody else." And you get stuck in that moment. And that
Yeah.
choice takes a ton of courage to say, I know who I am. I'm not going to allow this to define me. I think you had a quote, do not let your fall define you.
Yeah.
And I think that is one of the most beautiful things to say because we all fall down. We may not break our face, we may not
Sure.
be put in a medical coma,
Sure.
but
Sure.
we fall down with crap every day. Things that happen to us and we beat ourselves up, particularly as
Yeah.
women. Um, so you had this moment, but there was a moment where you decided to get back up on that wire. And I want to say you didn't just decide to get on a 1 foot wire. You decided, I'm going to go up and walk in Times Square. How tall was
Mhm.
that wire? Like,
It was 250 feet up, 25 stories.
and it was like twice as long as a wire you had ever walked in the
Yep.
past. Like,
Highest, longest. Yeah.
this was
Longest.
like the most amazing feat that I can tell you, I can't imagine anybody would get back on the wire, but to get
Yeah.
back on the wire in the fashion that you did, tell me about this moment. What made you tell them what you were asked to do? Tell the audience what you were
Yeah.
asked to do by your brother and
Yeah.
what made you switch? Because you're going from, I'm not going to let my son do this.
Yeah.
This is dangerous to, I'm going to go break a freaking record in Times
Yeah.
Square. Talk to me about
Yeah, it's interesting. So I had gotten back to walking the wire after the accident, a low one again,
that. Mhm.
um, and that was fine. And then I had to go have another face surgery about a year and a half after the accident where they re-broke every single bone again because my jaw wasn't lined up quite right. It was pretty intense. It was really tough surgery. So I feel like I took all these steps back again, right? But still was able to get on the wire down low. And my brother called me about 2 months after the second face surgery and he said that he had just left New York City. He got permission from the mayor to walk a wire across Times Square, 25 stories up. And it was to be a live primetime TV special, which is normal for my brother. He's done several of these. So I'm like, great, I'll be there. Amazing. I'll be there to cheer you on. And then he said, hey, do you want to do it with me? And, there was probably a split second of like, what? But my love, like I really love walking the wire, so it took over, and I was like, yeah, yeah, of course I want to do it, and I was so excited. Was training in my backyard here in Las Vegas, down low, and then the time went to go down to Florida, where my brother was and my family, to start training on a
Uh-huh.
higher wire,
Uh-huh.
and so it was time to step on a wire that was 15-foot high, which is not very high in our world of wire walking, but you know, when you're up there looking down, it looks pretty high, and it was the highest wire I would have been on since the accident. So I take that step in the wire, and that's when I got struck with like that fear. That fear just kind of took a grip. It felt like it was holding me around the throat. Like I kept seeing that image of the big round red mat in the circus ring getting closer and closer to my face as I was training on this wire. I'd be in tears often, having conversations with my sister-in-law, my brother, my mom, dad, as I'm walking the wire. Um, that was when I was like, I don't want to do this. But I agreed to it. I wouldn't even tell my family that. They would have been so okay with me backing out. They
Of
would,
course.
everyone would have been fine with that. But I'm a woman of my word, and I agreed to it. I was going to push through, and I kept going back, and it was terrifying, and I wasn't walking the wire the way I was trained to walk the wire. It was tough. I was stiff and rigid, and you know, every step was just filled with fear. Um and I always tell the story about how back before the accident, there were many times I'd be standing on a chair balancing on top of a bar on top of 7 men on the wire. So I'd be like 45 feet in the air. And honest to God, my mind would start wandering. And I think about what I wanted for dinner, or, you know, what outfit I wanted to wear the next day. Because, you know, I used to be so comfortable on the wire, and nothing like that had happened. Like I was just in my head. Every step was just filled with, filled with fear. And this particular day, I'm walking the wire. I was on a wire 50 feet in the air training. And I noticed all these dragonflies that kept landing on the wire in front of me and flying off. There was a whole bunch of them. And I was thinking about them and how cool they were, how pretty they were. But then I realized, oh my gosh, I'm thinking about the dragonflies. Like my mind is wandering again. And it was so emotional. And I remembered at that moment how much I do love walking the wire. And I remembered that, you know, I'm actually a good wire walker, because see, when you're in that fear lies to you. And I kept hearing in my head, like, you're not a good wire walker. Who do you think you are? You're not good enough for this. And that was what was driving this fear in me. But in that moment, I remembered, no, I love this, and I'm really good at this. And I was crying, like tears streaming down my face, because it was such a emotional moment for me. And I reached the other platform and stepped off the wire. And one of the men up there to help me off the wire saw my tears, and he said, "What's wrong?" And I do not know where this came from. To this day, I blurted out, "I forgot who I was," which I didn't even realize how powerful of a statement that was. I didn't quite connect it all, but I must have known it deep down, because that's what I blurted out. But it was that moment where I remembered that I am a wire walker. Those lies, those are all lies in my head. That fear is all lies. And you know, I think it was so powerful, not just for me as a wire walker, but like you said, everyone's fallen off of a wire here or there.
Oh,
You know, it's losing a job, it's going through a divorce, it's whatever it might be. Um, and I feel like those traumatic events, they strip pieces of our confidence away, which had happened to me. All my confidence was shot in wire walking. Um,
yeah.
and it would have been okay if I stopped walking the wire. But how sad if I wouldn't have pushed through that fear and lived to my full potential and got back to what is my passion and what I love doing more than anything. So it's okay if you choose not to push past that fear, but I think it's kind of a tragedy, you know? I
Yeah,
think
and
we need to dig deep and find that strength. We all have that inner strength.
we do. And you know, when you have a fear response, like physiology, if you release cortisol, you're having a fear response. And this fear response can be anticipatory. You can just be imagining something going wrong. It doesn't even have to be going wrong.
Sure.
It changes our brain, it changes the way that we process information. So our
Interesting.
prefrontal cortex starts to
Uh-huh.
change and not have realistic thought. And so it perpetuates this fear. And I think, you know, you're telling your story about you forgot who you were. And I think so many of us go through life. We have something happen. You know, for me, it was a ton of grief, a lot of loss. Things
Oh.
happen. We worry about it. We
Mm-hmm.
start to change our brain. And
Mm-hmm.
in every little turn of our brain, every little switch from that fear, we start losing that connection with our heart and who we really are, right? I
Yeah.
mean, if you go around and you ask a bunch of women in their 50s or even 40, maybe 40s, Do you know who you are? Are you doing things that bring you joy? Is every day of yours filled with reward and what you love to do? A lot of women come back and say, "No,
Yeah.
I don't remember who I am. I don't know how to be joyful anymore. I feel like all I do is serve everyone else, or I'm in
Yeah.
this job just for the money, or I'm in this or that."
Yeah.
And it's such a powerful thing because all of us, if you go back to when we were a kid, what did we love to do? I love to dance. That's why I hip hop dance now.
Yeah.
You are a wire walker. That is what you are
Yes.
in
Yes.
all its glory. And
Yeah.
you fell and you got back up. And so many people don't get back up
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
they go the
Yeah.
other way out of fear. And it is
Mhm.
so powerful, so incredibly powerful. So you're getting ready to go on a high wire in Times Square.
Yep.
So you find yourself again. So you get up there 25 stories up. And I imagine that when you took those first few steps, it it had to be somewhat terrifying in that
Terrifying.
moment.
It
What
was terrifying. Yep.
how did you, because you made it. Let's just give you the story.
I
You
made
made
it.
it.
I did.
So you take that step and then there's a long way to go. So did you
Yeah.
find that progressively as you kept
Yeah.
going, you just found that wind under your wings per se? Well, how did that go
Exactly.
for you?
Yeah. Yeah. The first step is, fear is in the first step. I say that first step is terrifying, and I had been through that whole remembering who I was moment and had my breakthrough, and I had trained hard and I was ready. But when you do what I do for a living, walking a wire, and you're looking down 250 feet and the people look like the size of ants, because they really did. It's still scary, still very scary. But, it's about having a strong mind in that moment and remembering, no, 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 I can do this down low. I've done 3 times the length of this in one go of it. I have more than enough strength. I have more than enough ability. And you got to take that first step, even though it's scary. I'm not saying, I mean, you need to prep whatever your wires, you need to prep and do the work, but you got to remember, okay, I've done all this prep. I'm ready. And you got to take that first step. And it was really scary. And about 5 steps in, it was still really, really scary. And then about 20 steps in, it was maybe a little less scary, you know? And it just progressively got a little bit less scary until, about midway through it, it was just all fun. It was just amazing. I just was able to actually take in the experience of, seeing the lights of Broadway flashing below me was amazing, and seeing the crowd out there and, conquering this with my brother who was, there with me during the accident. It was just amazing. And yeah, it was incredible. And again, it would have been fine if I didn't do this walk, but what a tragedy, because that fear would have festered in me, and that lack of belief in myself would have festered and got bigger and bigger and bigger.
What I find so fascinating, because I treat people with fear-based stress disorders and how that's
Okay.
impacting their health, is that most people think that courage, if you have courage, it means you're not afraid.
Nope.
And
Hmm.
you walked over 1,000 feet through the air,
Hmm.
terrified. So I
Yeah.
want to ask you this question. What is the difference between being fearless and being courageous?
I think being fearless is somewhat foolish. I think that fear is there to protect us. And if I didn't train to walk that wire, I'd be foolish to step in that wire, and that fear would be valid. But
Yeah.
I think being courageous is feeling that fear because you know the stakes, you know the consequences if you do misstep in that wire, but remembering all the thousands of hours I put into training, all the hard work I'd put into it. So I think it's mind over matter. It's remembering that I'm not just walking out from like I'm not someone who's never walked the wire before. Like if you were on the edge of Times Square, I would say, no, don't do it. Don't do it unless you come train with me for a while. Don't do it. Right. But I had to remember that I trained for this, but that fear does, it still comes, it comes. You're looking down. It's scary, but it's about having a strong mind and saying, no, I've trained for this. I can do this 3 times over, because I
Yeah.
always train at least 3 times of what I'd have to do in one performance. So I have that extra strength in case I need something. So I was ready. So I think being courageous is, it's kind of a famous quote, but you feel the fear, but you do it anyway, you know?
Yeah. Well, and also your son, I want to talk about your son for a second, because this shows about what are we modeling, right? What are we modeling to others when we live in fear? If we live
Yeah,
in fear, what are we teaching our children?
sure.
How are they now being raised, and what are their nervous systems now doing being raised like that? So you had said, like, when you were falling, you were like, my kid's not doing this. Like,
Yeah.
I'm
That was,
out.
yeah. Yeah.
He's not doing it. Forget it. And but that's switched, hasn't it?
It switched, yeah. Because, that was in the heat of the moment as I was falling. Of course, I would never want that for him or my nephews or niece, but you realize that I would let him walk the wire. I would train him really hard and make sure he had all the tools he needed to walk that wire, the ability. Um, you think about it, people think we're crazy for walking the wire. You're more likely to go drive down to the grocery store and get in a car accident. Quite honestly, statistically speaking, you are. It's not like we're just gonna just go and tempt fate. We're elite athletes. We've trained
Yep.
our whole life, and the accidents that have happened, we've learned from them. Like my great grandfather, it was
Mhm.
not his ability. The rigging was put up incorrectly, where the wire was. There's stuff like that, and
Mm.
yeah, we take risks, but we take risks every time we get in that car, even walk down the street.
We take a risk
So,
every day we wake up,
yeah.
no matter what that risk is, I look in the generation of us as parents, it's like we're more likely to be helicopter parents now because we can track them, they've got the
That's
GPS, we've got
interesting. It's
do you
true,
know what
yeah.
I mean, right? Like,
Yeah.
we're following them around, like, trying to protect them all the
Yeah.
time, but when I go back to, obviously our generation, but also maybe previous to that, I mean, I remember leaving the house, going off on a bicycle, and my parents didn't know where I was, and if I came
Yep.
home by dinner time, great.
Yep.
We were given so much freedom to
We
explore the
were.
world and to test our limits and to make decisions by ourselves, and I think the high wire, obviously, that teaches your son how to trust his own body, how to
Yep.
be present in his own body, how to train and be healthy as an athlete, how to anticipate something that could happen and train to be proactive rather than
Yep.
always being reactive, although he's trained
Yeah.
to be reactive as well. So, does he now walk the wire up high?
He doesn't. He walks a wire down. He can walk a wire down low. Um, he hasn't he had interest for a few years and now he's kind of off that. He wants to do other things, and that's fine. I want him to be happy. I would never, push him
Yeah.
to walk the wire. Um, but yeah, he's not quite ready for that. I would train him a little. He'd have to be more serious and put more time into it, and I'd have to make sure he was ready for that. But he does walk one down low. He is able. He is capable.
Do you
So
think he learned from this experience through you about how to handle risk, fear, and to be authentic to himself? Did he take a positive message away from that?
I wonder. I don't know. I know
Mhm.
that for me, the way I look at life and the way I overcome fear is all because of the way my parents raised me and seeing how they lived life.
Yeah.
So I hope so. And I know when he's going through something here or there, I will give him examples of like, remember when I couldn't walk, Gav? Remember when I was a knee scooter and you sit in the front of it and I'd push you around? Or remember when I was in that wheelchair? Like we'll go back there and talk things through. So I hope so. I don't, he's 14. So
Mhm.
I don't know yet, but I never quite understood what I had learned from my parents and how growing up a wire walker prepared me for many things in life, not just wire walking. So until I was older and looked back. So
It did, right?
it did.
How did this career for your family outside of wire walking, how did it shape you as a woman, as a person?
Many things. I think my work ethic, there's no just phoning it in. You got to train hard and be ready. I have I think a very high standard for work ethic. I always give it my all, no matter what I'm doing. Um, I think I have an ability to handle a lot of stuff coming at me at once and kind of manage that stress.
Yeah.
Um, because when you're standing looking down off the edge of the building, it's like I said, it's scary, and you learn how to manage that stress and think it through and rationalize. Like, nope, I've trained hard for this. So I have a job here. I'm a costume designer for a show, and it's always things changing, always a lot of stuff coming at me. I'm managing a lot of people, shuffling projects around. But I think that my life as a wire walker has prepared me, for that. Um, Very much that never give up mentality that my great grandfather Carl Wallenda had
Mhm.
passed down to us. It came
Yeah.
from the wire walking. Like you never give up, and I believe that's how I am in life with anything. So yeah,
Wow. So didn't he have a quote? It was like, "Life is on the wire, everything else is waiting."
yes,
Was
he
that
was
him?
famously saying that. Yeah.
So, you have someone who's been broken and rebuilt. Does that quote would you change that quote in any other way? Like, if you were talking to someone about who's afraid to live, who's afraid to explore, what advice would you give them? And do you have your own quote now as a legacy for everything you've been through?
Gosh, I don't think I have an actual quote.
Yeah.
I think that it's hard because I talk about like no matter what you've been through, you can get back to it. Now, there are cases where people are very injured in accidents. They can't get back to life as they had known it exactly. So I always want to be sensitive to that, right?
Yeah.
But I think that we can figure out how to modify things and get back to a version of what we used to do. I think that I often say, you're so much stronger than you know, because I didn't know that I had that inner strength to get through everything I got through. Um, so I think I would tell people, no, you got this. Like, yes, it's hard. Yes, there are days you feel like giving up and you just cry all day. Allow yourself to have those moments. But, and also another big one for me was looking in the mirror. Looking in the mirror was
Yeah.
really hard after the accident, but I learned to not look at the whole picture in the mirror. And that goes with everything in life. Don't look at the whole big mess. Look for one good thing and focus on that. My dimples were back one day and I remember focusing on that or whatever it was. Um, I'd look for one thing to be thankful for that day.
Gratitude is just huge. And, growing up in the fashion world, all we did was nitpick our appearance. That's all we did. We were never pretty enough. We were never tall enough. We were never skinny enough. We had a dimple there with this or that. And I had to go through the same thing. And I think many women do, where you look in and you say, oh, this is beautiful. I am beautiful. I have this little pooch, but I had two beautiful babies.
Yeah.
Um, and they're wonderful. And how do we impart that on future generations? I think that's the hard part, especially in a world that we live in. You were saying, when you were talking about people, they fall, maybe they have something and they can't go back to where they once were, like you
Yeah.
did, and being
Yeah.
sensitive to that. But I always wonder, when these types of things happen, sometimes the path isn't to go back to exactly what you did before. In your
Exactly.
case, it was because you had to hone in on who you were and who you were born to do. And that's your beautiful story. And that's what you were brought
Yeah.
to this world to share, is
Yeah.
that you have to own who you are. There's a lot of people who are doing things that aren't authentic to them. They
Yeah.
aren't what they want to do. And something happens and they can't do it anymore. And they fight to try to go back to it. And it's like, hold on now. The world just gave you an opportunity
Yes.
to be who you authentically are, and that may not be who you were. It may
Yeah.
be someone completely different, and so there's a huge lesson in that. Is, I think people have these metaphorical high wire falls, right? They lose their
100%.
job, they get a divorce, maybe they get in a car accident, maybe they were given a diagnosis of disease that's changed their mobility.
Yeah.
But there's always this amazing shift in lesson in where are we going to do moving forward. And
Yeah.
your story and what you're doing now, which I want you to talk about, just getting out and talking about this, and
Sure.
your mission out there is inspiring so many people to make that choice to live as
I hope
themselves.
I
So
hope so.
what are you doing out in the world right now with all this?
Yeah, I was gonna say that would sort of be how I changed after the accident. After Times Square, I got so much response, people saying, "Oh, you inspired this or that or whatever in them." And so I thought, I have to start speaking about this. And that was really scary to me. Just standing on stage, not performing some kind of crazy feat and just talking was really scary. It's like, I'm boring. They're not going to want to listen to me. But I really felt that I'm meant to be speaking. So yeah, I started speaking to audiences, about how I got through the accident, about how, to overcome fear and, a lot of different subjects relate to my accident and to wire walking in general. So that was kind of a slight career shift. I'm still walking the wire and sometimes speak while I'm on the wire.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You guys hear that? She's on the wire while she speaks. Like, I'm
Sometimes.
attending that. That's it. Like,
Yes.
that's just awesome. It's absolutely it's awesome. I think what you're
Thank you.
doing and what you're giving back to the world and showing them about gratitude is so much needed right now, because
It's so needed.
we're
You know,
losing. I think we're losing that gratitude, and we're looking a
yeah.
lot to blame, and this
Yeah.
happened to me, so I can't. I really have tried to remove from my verbiage and from my kids the word can't. I don't
Yeah.
like it. I don't think it's
Yeah.
I think I won't. I don't
Yeah.
want to.
Sure. But
Those
not
are
I can't.
totally different, but I
Yes.
can't. I
Yes.
I don't know. I always think we can do something. It's just we might be trying to do something that we're not supposed to do. And so it
Yes.
seems like we can't.
Yeah.
Um, can I do a couple rapid fire with you? Because I'm curious.
Sure. Sure.
What's scarier, the high wire or the ground?
It depends on the day. Uh, Usually the ground, honestly, the high wire, I'm very well rehearsed. The ground, you never know what's going to come at you. So
Right. If fear had a voice, what does yours sound like now versus back then while you were going through all this?
So back then it was, "You're not good enough. Who do you think you are? You're a failure." Now it's, "Oh, that's really scary. And if I fall, I might not make it, but I'm gonna make it. And I'm gonna push through because I've trained hard and I know who I am as a wire walker and as a human."
Oh, this one
Mm,
may not apply to you, but if we said something like, I used to model survival, just going through the
yep,
motions, but
yep.
now I model.
I used to model survival, but now I model overcoming, living victoriously. Um, gosh,
It's
having those hard days, but pushing through still and getting to the other end of that wire.
it's it's beautiful. Like I just what a metaphor. And I agree with you. I think I'd probably rather be up on the wire or on the ground. But I can't walk a wire, just put that out there. But I'm a I'm a
Come on
Gemini.
over to my house. I'll train you.
Okay, oh great. I'm tall and I'm already scared of heights, but then maybe someday. I feel
Yeah,
like I could go on a trapeze before I would go on a wire.
yeah.
But I
Because
think
you're
that'd be
holding
fun.
on, I feel like it's a little bit like, and the wire just balancing. So I get that. Yeah.
Yeah, with a
Yeah.
net below me though, please.
Yes. Yes.
But I'm a Gemini, so I'm an air sign, so I tend to like to be on the 2nd floor. I tend to like to be on a
uh,
taller bed. I don't really like
okay.
being on the ground. I don't know why. Little
Huh.
things on the ground bother me. So, yeah,
Interesting.
maybe a wire would be better for me.
Love it. Yeah. Wow.
So, looking back on this whole journey with you from the hospital, from being young, learning who you are, being in a hospital bed, being in a coma, remantling your entire face to Times Square, getting back into it, creating a movement to help other people and paying it forward. I mean, first of all, I hope you recognize just how courageous and lovely and just in your element that you are by doing that. A lot
Yeah.
of people don't make it to that point where they start to pay it forward, right?
Mm,
You were
thank you.
born to do this. It is clear you were born to do this, and it brings tear to my eyes just knowing
Oh,
you the very little I do that you are
oh,
out there doing it, and I'm very proud to see it, and I'm your
oh,
biggest fan. I'm gonna be
thank you.
watching.
Thank
But,
you.
going through all of these things and even modeling for your son and teaching your son and his path
Hmm.
and future generations of you, flyers, what do you hope that people learn about resilience from just watching and hearing your story? And on a second part, what are you consciously choosing now to model about your life that maybe you weren't prior to tragedy?
Hmm. Okay. So I think what I hope they learn about resilience is that, they can do it too. They can get back on their wire too. I think we see other people like, "Oh, but that's them. I can't do that." Yes, you can. Whatever your wire is, yes, you can. You can get back up. And when you get back up, you're going to remember who you are. Like we had talked about earlier, the more I doubt myself, and if I didn't step on that wire and push through, that fear would fester and get bigger and bigger and bigger. And health issues, like you said. So I think, you're so much stronger than you know again, is what I would think. And then what am I modeling that I didn't before?
Like, to the outside world, this had to have changed the way that you looked at the world. I mean, I can't
Yeah,
imagine that you came out of that hospital bed and the world was the same. I mean,
yeah,
the
yeah,
way you look at the little things of gratitude, the way you look at the things that maybe used to bother you, did
sure.
that had to change, right? Like, so how do
Yeah,
you face the world now,
it
I guess?
changed. It changed the gratitude. Just to go to the gratitude thing, that's a big thing. I truly believe that my attitude in the hospital, the trauma unit, they thought I'd be there for 3 months at first. Then it was like 2 months. Then it was 1 month. I was out in about 10 days. Um, and I truly believe it was my drive because I would like stand on my one good leg and do like little squats, or I do crunches in bed. But it was the fact I believe that I had my family surrounding me and it wasn't all gloom and doom and sad. Like we were laughing and joking, and I have good memories in the trauma unit. And I think that attitude of gratitude really carries you a long way. So that's super important. Um, uh, I think I've gained a lot of confidence. I think I model. Look, I still struggle. I'm still a woman. I still struggle with like this and that and stuff about my face. Like my face is bigger since the accident and all that. but I think there is a level of confidence that I didn't have before the accident, and I hope the younger generation sees that. I always think about my niece. She's married now, 21, but 22, but people like that, I hope they see that. And like you said, we grow up nitpicking every little thing, like, oh, this isn't good enough for that or that. I think that I have a bit of confidence. And I don't get me wrong, I still am a woman and have my moments, but at the end of the day, I know none of that matters. I know that matters is who I am as a human being, and what I can do to hopefully help, model something positive for the rest of the world or just one person.
Just one
So
person. I know that's my
yeah,
goal every day. If I can talk to one person every day
yeah,
and they walk away saying, "Wow, that girl was kind of cool. Like she lifted me up," then my legacy's done.
yeah,
Like I've accomplished everything that I've wanted to accomplish in my life, and that's outside of financial and business and otherwise. If one person got a positive interaction with me, I mean, what more can you ask for in life than to impart love onto people?
yeah,
I just,
yeah,
but I
yeah,
think you have to go through tragedy to recognize that because we get so driven on, I want to have the best car. I want to have the most money. I want to
yes,
have the best career. I want so and so to remember me. I want to be invited to the mixer down the street. I want all these things that we
yeah, yeah,
we feel like we have to be included, to be
yes,
accepted, to be loved.
mm-hmm,
We already have.
yeah,
And we have it in our community. The fact that your family was all around you and you were laughing, I mean, think about that powerful community. I
yeah.
went to Sarasota for the
Mm.
first time ever. Actually, my first time in Florida. My
Oh,
first visit
wow.
was Sarasota, and
Wow.
we actually went to a circus, to watch. Now, I don't know if they were related to your family or not, but we were
I don't
watching
know.
them swing trapeze and do all
Yeah,
sorts of stuff.
yeah,
And this is a family business for you. It's a legacy of a business, but it's very much a community of support, love,
yes,
trust. You all have to lean on each other. You all have
yes,
to support each other. There's no room for negative talk in your family, I
yeah,
imagine.
yeah,
And what a beautiful example because we can all create that in
mhm.
our own lives. We don't have to be wire walkers to take away the negative talk and the support and bring in community. So, girl, you're a gem in this world.
Aw, thank you. That's so
Th
kind.
Thank you for taking time away from the high wire
Yeah.
to to come spend time with me.
Absolutely.
Um, I mean, you've given such great takeaways for people,
Oh, good. I hope
but,
so.
if someone is listening right down and they're standing on their metaphorical high wire and they feel lost, they've lost who they are, what what can you say to them to wrap it up? What would you
Mm.
say to encourage them?
Well, I think they need to keep pushing through whatever that is, that hurdle to get up to their wire till they remember who they are. Keep going through those hard days, keep going through those scary days, but don't give up. Don't give up. Keep going. I'm telling you, it took at least 6 weeks for me with me in that training for Times Square of really terrifying days, nightmares all night long. Like it was really hard, but I had that finding, remembering who I was moment. So I would say, don't give up. Don't give up. Keep pushing because you're so much more powerful and strong than you know, and you got this.
You're so
So
worth it.
yes,
You are
yeah,
worth it. Yes, you
yes,
are worth fighting for.
yes.
Yeah.
That
Oh, thank you so much. And where can people find you so they can follow you and they can see every amazing thing that you're doing? And
yeah.
hopefully, if you guys need speakers, I mean, I can't imagine anyone more motivational than this woman right here. So, where
Aw.
can they find you and connect with you?
Yeah. So my website is thehighwireproject.com. You can connect with me there. And then if you want to keep up with the day to day more, it'd be Instagram at Lijana Wallenda, which is Lijana Wallenda. Yeah, my name is spelt a little weird, my first name. So yeah.
I love it. Does it have a root? Like, did it mean anything, or was it just you thought it was beautiful?
I know that my mom had an older cousin whose name was Yana, Jana. And my parents like Liliana, so they just did Liana with spelt it that way. So I think that's kind of where it came from.
It's beautiful. It's beautiful.
Thanks.
Thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you. Good to see you.